I'm good. Thank God I'm good. This is so cool, Cam.
I know, isn't it amazing? I love technology for reasons like this that we can have this conversation.
I know you look so like profesh with your mic there.
With my big microphone blocking half my face. I have a huge zit right here. So in moments like this, it's very convenient because you can't see the big zit because the big microphone just covers it all.
That's fantastic.
It is. It works well. I mean, it's better than cover up. It still lets it get the air, but
Just not great in other public spaces,
right. Exactly. Walking around with it's a bit much.
Oh my goodness. This is mad. It's been so long.
I know. It's been way too long. Way too long. We're hoping to go to Italy this summer. And I was telling Matt, I'm like, I really want to go to Ireland too, but I don't think we can make it work. But we'll see. Who knows?
It's so hard because you probably have so little time to
Yeah.
try it over. But it would be lovely. I'm sure like the boys and everyone would love to see it.
I know, I know. I would absolutely love it. So Matt and Liam are going separate than me and the three littles. So I may try to, I don't know. I'll try to figure it out. So maybe at least me and the little ones can stop in Ireland, but or maybe on the way home. I don't know. It's hard because it's like you're kind of on the way, but not really. Because to get to Ireland, you got to go that much further north and then down. Because from where we live, it's more of a straight shot to England, really, than y'all, and then Italy's more this way. So
And then even once you get to Ireland to get to Donegal, to the people you
I
know, it's
know. Well, that's it. Like if I was just wanting to stop in Belfast or just stop in Dublin, that's easy. But you're right. It's like traveling through the country to get to Donegal.
well, there's a bed in Belfast and a bed in Donegal for you anyway. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, you're in Belfast now, right?
yeah, yeah, it's great.
Do you love it?
Uh, I love it. I've been so blessed. Like, do you know when God wants you to do something but you don't want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I did not want to move to Belfast. Like, it broke my heart because I left such good community in Derry.
Mm-hmm.
And I found like amazing community here. Like, I'm living in a house with five other girls, and they're all Catholic. Like, one of them like is wants to be a sister. Like, everyone's really like going for it with God, and it's just so nice. Like, it's
Oh,
such a
that's beautiful.
and I'm saying it kind of because I'm engaged, so I'm saying it kind of as like my marriage prep. Like,
Yeah, no, that's really good.
it's great.
Yeah, and you guys can help each other grow in holiness and purify and get you ready. What's your wedding date?
Oh, it's so far away. It's July 21, the 9th of July 21.
Very good. That does still feel a bit far away, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, so far away. And I feel like too, like there's this part of me, like the pride in me is like Catholic couples get married really quick. So you're not even Catholic.
No, that's not true. If you guys can do a long engagement, that's great. Matt and I could not have done a long engagement. I think it's knowing yourselves and knowing your um yeah, and for us, like it just didn't make sense. Like neither he wasn't in our country, like he wasn't in his country, so like his whole life was on pause until until we got married, you know. So I feel like that's part of why our engagement was quick. It's like he doesn't have friends here, he doesn't have community. We just need to be able to start living together and form our life together, and yeah,
Yeah. It's class. It's so exciting, like.
it is. And where's he from?
So he's from Mahara, so it is like halfway between Belfast and Donegal.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it's very convenient. Well, not quite halfway. It's about halfway between here and Derry. If
Okay,
you,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it's grand. Like he's my wee pit stop on my way home.
That's
After.
nice. That's nice. And do you get along well with his family?
Oh my gosh, his family are unreal. Like
Oh, good.
really, really good. Like we were actually just thinking, like, well, I was saying to him, can you imagine going? This is so random, but this is my thought process. Like staying over in his house and his family being like, why are you being so awkward? Like, why won't you just stay in his room? Like
Yeah.
his family are so solid and so like, why don't you just come to mass with us? Like, they're really, really
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. That could be so awkward because you're so. I couldn't see anyone not liking you. Like, it's obvious that his family would just love you. You're so easily lovable. But you're right. It would be like, oh, why are you such a prude? Why are you on the couch again? Just go in his room. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, one who used to sit in the room where they like bend over backwards to accommodate, the whole chastity thing they love. So
Good. Oh, I'm so happy for you.
thanks, Cam. And how's all with you? How's all the kids?
They're great. Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, we're doing well. Praise God. We yeah, they're wild. They're wild and crazy, but wonderful and never a dull moment. Similar to before, they're just bigger. But just like the craziness of just like I don't know, life is like it's funny. Like I think I've learned more. It's like temperaments and personalities, but like of course we're gonna have wild, crazy kids, and yeah. So it's wonderful though. They're great kids.
So I think I've only actually met Liam and Avila.
Yeah, yeah. So you only met Liam and Avila. So Liam's 12 now, Avila's 10. Kiara is 7, and she's very strong-willed, punky little cheeky girl. She's gorgeous. And then Peter just turned 5, who's the sweetest thing ever. He's head over heels in love with Jesus, and it's wonderful. Yeah.
Was it him who was saying about like, can Jesus just raise from the dead already?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Can he just raise from the dead already? Come on.
so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And is this being recorded?
We'll start and then I'll make a note and we'll edit it back. Yeah.
Because I was just wondering, you are going to a different church now, like obviously still Catholic,
Yes.
but Byzantine,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. How do you find that?
I love it. It's funny. There's certain things I miss about and right now it's funny. We were going just Byzantine for a while, and now we're going back and forth between a Roman rite that we were at before, where Liam had his first Holy Communion, because he wants to altar serve there. So we're going back and forth. Like one week we'll go to Our Lady of the Mountains, this Roman rite church, and then the next week we'll go Byzantine, and there's beauty in both. John Paul the Great talked about breathing through both sets of like both sides of the lungs, like our church is both east and west, and there's beautiful practices found in both. So, falling in love with the rosary. Like they have such a devotion to the Theotokos. Like Our Lady is so much, but it's more like singing and chanting prayers. And then like rote prayers, more like Jesus prayer, like, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. And it's all about breathing and calming yourself. Yeah, so there's beauty in both, but I love like we just started. So Byzantine, I'll have to record it for you. You would love it. So our night prayer, now we're doing, I think it's called metanies. And so basically we say the same as we're praying, you bend down, touch the floor, bless yourself, and then like bow down and you put your head on the floor. But the boys kiss the floor. So you hear and then blessing ourselves, standing up. And so you just see us all in a line and we're like touching the floor, coming up, bowing down, putting our head on the floor. And the kids love it. It's like their favorite thing about Lent is doing these metanies for prayers. And
That's so cute. And is it in English?
it is. Yeah, it's all in English and it's all chanting.
Yay.
I
Mass in English.
yes. Yep, it's all
I used
English.
to have a different language.
So certain
That's
ones are different languages. So like Malachite, Chaldean, like there are certain Eastern Catholic churches that are other languages that are from their country. The one we go to is a Byzantine, so it's John Chrysostom liturgy, and then during the Great Fast, it's Basil the Great liturgy. So mass like doubles in time for the Great Fast. So there's a lot more prayers and a lot more yeah, but it's all chanting, it's all English, and yeah, some of the prayers are just really, really beautiful, and it's like, I don't know, my ADD kicks in, and it's just like a rhythmic, I don't know. Yeah, it's lovely.
I'd love to try it. I was looking up to see, because I like I've been to Latin Mass. I like when there's so many different things in
I
the
know.
church, why not get all the graces from them
Yeah,
all? Like,
yeah,
why
yeah.
not? But I don't, there's one that comes up to Belfast like once a month. But then I was like, do you know whenever I was just afraid maybe it wasn't completely solid? Like, obviously, I know that the Byzantine Rite in general is, but this
Yes.
group,
Yeah.
'cause
The vast
it's so
major
important.
Yeah, the vast majority are very solid, and they're very small and very much their people. So like our kids went to a Maronite Catholic preschool in San Diego when we lived there. And it was not English. It sounded like I couldn't follow along in the liturgy at all, but it was really beautiful. And there was different things like the sign of peace. They would like come at each other. Like the priest gave the first sign of peace, and then it was his peace that was passed around to the whole parish. And it was interesting and different, and that's lovely. You should totally try it. I
Yeah.
find that it's hard to find a lukewarm Eastern Catholic church that it's very easy to find a lukewarm Roman Catholic church. I think because I mean y'all have been persecuted big time, but as far as like us in the States go, like being Catholic has always been allowed and not really persecuted. So it's like, oh yeah, like it's just more I don't know, we just fall into where most of the Eastern religions, like, so all the other Eastern Catholic churches I'd been to, like everyone there, I remember talking to a Chaldean friend of mine, and she's like, Cameron, she's like, the problem with you Americans is you don't fear the Muslims enough. Like you don't understand what they're capable of. You don't understand, like in this room, all of us have a family member and multiple other people that we have seen be murdered in front of our faces. Yeah. And they all fled from were they Iraq, Iran? I forget. They fled from their country, and they're like, we're all here so we could live. Like we fled for our lives, we left all of our possessions behind, and we came to America where we could freely worship and pray. And so their faith is so important to them, and their loved ones died because of the Catholic faith, right?
Yeah, like that adds so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You fight for something, you definitely hold on to it stronger. Because even I find here in Belfast, it's people have definitely held on to the faith more than in Donegal, and
Yeah.
Belfast would have been much more difficult to practice your faith in than in Donegal.
Yeah.
It's mad. Now that today people are being persecuted and it's no hassle for me to go to mass, and I'm like, oh, will I, won't I? Like,
Yeah, right? And where,
and people
like,
would,
it wasn't that long ago that you would have been persecuted going to mass in Belfast. That would have been illegal.
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or, like, I was so sheltered from all of that. Like, I didn't even know there were troubles till I was maybe 14, 15. Like,
Really?
I knew songs, but I never really questioned where they came from or why. Like, I had no idea what had been going on. Like, but I think our parents very much brought us up that way intentionally. Like, they didn't want us having any hatred or.
Right. No, which makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. It's like I want to protect you and I'll let you know, but I'm going to only give you the information that's required right now for where you are. So that makes sense. You were more at the age of reason where they're like, okay, now we can talk to you about this. But yeah. Yeah. And then not to have prejudice against. I remember even in Bally Buffet living there, like I remember people, like I became friends with a local pastor's wife, and people were telling me I shouldn't be friends with her because I was a real Catholic. Yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah, yeah. And she was even like kind of concerned, like I remember the first time she came to my house, she's like, Cameron, I don't need to come in. It was for a play date because she had a little boy the same age as Liam. And I was like, no, 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 come in, of course. And she's like, people are talking about you, right? And I'm like, let them talk. I don't care. You love Jesus. I love Jesus. Come have a cup of tea. Let our boys play together. Like, let's just be friends. It's not a big deal.
That is mad.
Isn't it?
It's funny, like when I'd come up to things here in Belfast before I lived here, if I was going to like a festival or something, um, Dad would be so cautious of me bringing a Southern Reg car up to a Protestant thing. If it was a Protestant praise and worship festival, he'd be like, "You can't do that," like because he'd be
Wow.
afraid
Yeah.
that and stuff in the background, like that prejudice was still there. But in my mind, it wasn't. I
Right.
was probably like dandering into danger, no issue. I'm like, anyone who really loves Jesus, you're safe. Like, they're not going to be like throwing petrol bombs and praying a rosary, or like,
Right. 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 Right.
it just doesn't make sense.
No, agreed. All right, let's pray and dive into this interview, and let's do it for real because I feel like we could get into all this too, which is so good. But we'll go ahead and pray and make it all official. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for my amazing, beautiful sister and you. And I thank you for reuniting us after all these years. I thank you for just giving her such a good, beautiful heart. I pray, Lord. I thank you, Lord, for the gift of Ireland. I thank you for St. Patrick and Catholicism. And I pray that you bless this conversation. Don't let it be our words, but rather your words. And Our Lady, guide this conversation, bless it, and draw all those that listen close to your Son. Amen.
Amen.
All right, I'm going to make a note of when to officially start. So sometimes I put it up early on Patreon, so that we'll kind of like have all this, and then I'll do the official podcast, and we'll have it come out right before St. Patrick's Day. But you don't have to feel like you have to say anything in particular about St. Patrick, but it's just good timing wise to do St. Patty's episode.
It is. One sec, I'm just getting up something here on me second.
No worries. Do you have any questions too before we start?
I don't think so. Is there anything like in particular you'd like me to talk about?
No, it's just you and me having a chat.
Cook. I've got Jesus up in my vibration.
Nice.
Great. I'm good when you are, Cam.
Okay, great. All right, 17:05. Hello and welcome to the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to all of our guests?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tanya McKee, and I'm a friend of Cam's from Ireland. And I'm delighted to be on the show. Get to chat to you all.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good to chat with you. It's just so good to see your face too. I feel like we kind of got reconnected on the Marco Polo group, the Magna Lily's Marco Polo group, and that was lovely to see your face and hear your voice. But you make me miss everyone back there. So it's good.
Everyone back here, I'm sure, misses you so much.
Oh, yeah. Please, God, one day I will make it back to visit. Yeah. Okay. So I thought that, well, it was funny. Christine and I were talking about doing an episode for St. Patrick's Day. And she's like, is there anyone back in Ireland you want to interview? And you popped in my head. I was like, yes, there is actually. Because I already had Sheena on, but I thought it would just be fun to chat with you. And I don't know. I think Americans look at St. Patrick's Day very differently than the Irish do. I don't know. Was that your experience? What do you think?
Well, I remember hearing that I feel like it's a bigger deal in America than it is in Ireland. In general, in Ireland, it's just a great excuse to get drunk and like to go out and party. Like, that's not how I see it, but in general, it's become more of like a cultural thing than actually, a religious observation.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, actually, in Belfast, there's a new Latin group of priests who've moved up to Belfast. So they're doing Latin Mass, and for St. Patrick's Day, they want to have Latin Mass, and then I think there's going to be like stew afterwards. It's just pretty Irish.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then we're going to have a ceilidh after that.
What group of priests is it? Do you know their names? Is it the Society of St. Peter?
No, I think it has Christ the King in it, or the Institute of...
Okay, that's awesome.
I'm not sure.
That sounds great. Go ahead. Sorry, continue. So you're going to do stew and what?
Stew and then ceilidh, like the Irish dancing, which
Lovely.
is something I haven't done in a long time, but it would be good crack. Did you ever get the chance to do it?
I had a host sister there that taught me a little Irish jig like forever ago, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Like, I feel like anytime I go to that, no one really knows the steps anymore except like the people, the die-hard older people.
Yes.
So you end up spending the whole time just laughing at how bad you are at it, but it's great crack. It's so social.
It is. It's very good. I always got in trouble for moving my arms too much. They're like, put your arms down straight. And I'm like, sorry. Okay, just the legs. I got this.
So funny.
I had a 5 or 6-year-old teaching me, so it was very fun for her to teach me. It was hilarious.
That's not what I was picturing when you said a host sister.
It was a little kid, and she was the big sister was like, oh, you're doing great. Oh, it's grand. And she's like, no, it's not good at all. No, keep your arms still. No, this Shanky can't do it. She can't. It was adorable. I was like, truth out of the mouths of babes, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
They can be heartless, eh?
yeah, but I love that, like, at least my friends would always go to mass, and I never associate, in the States, I never associated going to mass, you know? They pick shamrocks, do fresh shamrocks, you know, pin it on your shirt and go to mass. And I think even in Gdor, even when we lived up in Gdor, there was a lot more people at daily mass that day than other days. Like, it was more of a feast day.
I think it's actually a holy day of obligation. I
Oh,
just kind of
maybe
put
that's why it is.
him in America, but I suppose it makes sense because he's a patron saint of Ireland that it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that must be it. It's a holy day of obligation there and it's not here. But I love going to mass on St. Patrick's Day and it was in Ireland. That's probably why the church was packed because I'm like everybody loves going. I didn't even think that it was a holy day of obligation there, but that totally makes sense.
And also, it's the day we can break Lent, which
Oh,
is
yes, exactly. That's true too. Combination of both. But I remember, I think it was in Letterkenny, they did a parade, and I was so excited. I'm like, yay, a St. Patrick's Day parade. It's going to be amazing. It was the shortest parade I've ever been to. I was like, that's it. No, in the States, we do them a lot bigger, and there's a lot more. Okay, no, that's good. All right, happy St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, I've heard that. So it's pretty low key. Like, we have, I'd say it lasts maybe 10, 15 minutes. There's like a marching band,
Yeah.
a few random like local businesses or using the back of a lorry or like a truck to,
Hmm.
but it's not anything very professional. Like,
Yeah, we
it's
definitely
kind
took
of,
longer walking to the street and getting ready than the actual parade was.
yeah. But then, yeah.
But it was fun. It's good. So so tell our listeners just the basics of St. Patrick. So the people that are listening that maybe aren't even Catholic and they're just like, I just like this podcast. Okay, what's the deal with St. Patrick's? Like, obviously they celebrate St. Patrick's Day and probably wear green, even if they're not Irish. But tell us about St. Patrick a little bit.
Okay, so St. Patrick, although he's associated with Ireland, is actually Welsh. And if any of my facts are wrong, I'm sorry in advance because there's an awful lot of stories go round about him, and then it's difficult to tell what's actually truth and
Hmm.
what isn't.
Yeah,
But the
folklore from the truth. Yeah.
yeah, because Irish people love to tell a story and to add bits on. So although anything miraculous, of course, is possible for God, but so anyway, so he was Welsh. Apparently, he was kidnapped, brought to Ireland, worked as a slave, and in his time there in Ireland, he developed a real intimate relationship with God and a beautiful prayer life. And then eventually, as far as I know, in a dream, God told him about a boat that he could get to get out of Ireland, so to be freed from slavery. So he left Ireland, he went away, trained to be a priest, and then when he was asleep, he kept hearing the sound of the Irish calling him back to Ireland to help. And at the time, Ireland was a completely pagan country. There was no Christianity. So he came and he was, as far as I know, the first bishop in Ireland. And he converted loads. At the time, there was a lot of like chieftains running the place and um, like pagan, like there was a lot of witchcraft going on. And he converted loads of people and started the whole Catholic movement in Ireland. And then subsequently, we sent Irish missionaries out all over the world. So I feel like he's had a massive impact on the whole entire world, which is really.
Yeah.
And they say, so you've probably heard it say that he drove the snakes out of Ireland, but I think that's more he drove the demons out of Ireland than he drove any actual physical snakes.
Yeah,
If
just
you,
like the snake in the Garden of Eden. We don't actually think it was a but you're right. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think a snake could survive our winter, our cold. Never mind. Could survive our summer, never mind our winter.
I know, right? We had friends that visited us in July. Is it July? When's the summer solstice? Like the longest day of the year? I think it's July. It's like when the sun's out the most. Like the sun doesn't set till like 3 a.m. or something crazy and then it rises again at 5. It's in the middle of summer. I think it's July. Anyhow, we had friends from Texas that visited us, and we this was our tiny little house out in Gidor, and our house was like just concrete slabs. Like it was built by a priest who was not an engineer. He probably shouldn't have been building a house, but anyhow, it was freezing cold, and there wasn't like proper heating and stuff in the house, and so we had the like if you wanted to take a shower beforehand, you had to make sure the fire was on and it heated up enough of the water and all that grand stuff. And our friends, instead of staying in our guest room, they stayed in our living room, our lounge room, because it was warmer and they kept the fire going all night. And they're like, if this is your summer, I can only imagine how bad winter is. And Matt and Paul went to go, they went to sleep out. I don't know if they were beach tenting. They were tenting somewhere and they went to sleep outside and they were fine until the sun set. So they came back at like 3 a.m. when the sun went down and they were freezing cold. And they always talk about their freezing cold winter in Ireland, but it was the middle of the summer. Like, yeah, sounds about right.
Like, I feel like too, we don't even get as cold as like Canada or some of the North America countries, but shakers, it feels so cold. I think the moisture.
It's the moisture. And even some of the Canadians that did net in Ireland would say they're like, it feels colder here than in Canada. Because in Canada, their houses are built for it. And then their coats are too. So like they put on these layers and it like, they stay dry. Where I feel like in Ireland, your bones are wet and cold, right? And it's just hard to defrost. Yeah. And just like not having I don't know, the central air. Or like in Canada, I feel like their houses just are really, really warm.
Yeah, because right enough in Canada, I found when you're outside, you were freezing. When you come inside, you were roasting straight away.
Yes. Yeah. You were
Whereas
sweating.
so warm, it takes so long to warm up here
Yeah. You
once you
keep your
get.
coat on for a good bit before. And you got to get in the room with the fire and shut the door.
My house at the minute here, that like it's an old house. There's a group of us renting it, and it is so cold. But how we know it's so cold is that our visitors, like when people come to visit, keep their coats on the whole time, and it's so embarrassing. And we're like, oh, we have actually had the heat on for like 6 hours. There's just no insulation. Whoever
Yeah.
built this house
Yeah.
did not think about insulation at all.
Yeah, that was ours. And even our bathroom didn't have a sink in it. The sink was in the bedroom because and I think part of it was like for quick wash up, but it was like the bathroom was so freezing cold and there wasn't a radiator, like the wall heater, wasn't in the bathroom. And so like it was so cold and I remember like that's what I would offer up in the middle of the night, like having to go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to the bathroom. Like I need to go, but I don't want to. And it was so freezing cold. And then you run back to the bedroom and you try to get the water, but like the water was, we had the two spigots, so it was like you scald your hands or have them freezing.
That's the worst.
Yeah, that's just some of my fond memories of that house in Ireland. So when we moved to Ballybuffet, I'm like, oh, this house is amazing. It's so nice. I felt like it was the greatest house ever, and it was very simple, but
It was a lovely house. I
it
remember
was.
that.
It was. It's a wee lovely house that was not built by a priest. No offense to the priest. He was lovely, and we're thankful that we had a roof over our head, but it was a freezing cold house.
Oh, not good. Not good.
Yeah. I love that that part of St. Patrick's conversion was I think he was like working with the sheep or something. He was out in the fields, he was out and like I very much see God through beauty. And so like when we lived in Gweedore, like I'd go for walks with the kids and it was just like these beautiful green rolling hills and sheep and we could see some islands off in the distance and the beach and the ocean and it was so easy to encounter God. Like I feel like I'd be in the house and I'd be stressed and I'd have a colicky screaming baby and I was so stressed, but then once I put him in the pram and we go for a walk, it was so peaceful and it was so easy to see God. So I can totally see how St. Patrick could have that conversion experience out in the wilderness like that, because Ireland it's so gorgeous.
It is. It's so Donegal and what it's like, but at the minute I'm in the middle of a city, so I'm always like craving the sheep and the fields and the like, just that home, because it's with this silence,
Mm-hmm.
of you're in a field or you're outside your house and you can't hear traffic. Never
Yes.
mind, like see hundreds of people every direction you look, like when you're walking down the street. Um, it really does cultivate that like atmosphere for prayer and for
Yes.
hearing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I remember one time being out at Sleeve League, and just sitting and hearing the wind. And like I know scripture says like the Lord speaks in the whisper of wind, but I think being out there and actually like hearing the wind and it being so loud and powerful and just sitting back and just seeing, I don't know, it's the most beautiful sights, but it's so easy to encounter the Lord and hear him in that. And yeah, I whenever anyone tells me they're going to Ireland, they're normally going to Dublin, and like, what advice do you have? I'm like, get out of the cities. I'm like, Belfast and Dublin are great, but get out. Like, don't stay there. Go to Donegal or go wherever you can where you're in the country and like really experience the beauty of Ireland, because that's what I think most Americans, when we think of Ireland, that's what we picture. Like we picture more Donegal, you know?
Mhm. It's true. It's true. Like the amount of, I hope I don't insult American listeners because I know that not everybody thinks this way about Ireland, but the amount of people when I was in Canada on net or meeting Americans would be surprised by things like that we had electricity or that we had TV. So I can see how they're definitely imagined a really rural picture.
Like, what do you mean you have McDonald's? No, I'm scandalized.
Yeah. I remember, do you remember this? Like, I don't think it was actually on my year of net, but the year before, um, someone had been, they didn't realize that you had to turn on the heat before you have a shower. So he
Yes.
thought we just didn't have hot water. So for how long was he having cold showers?
And not cold like American cold. So those we have listeners that are like their husbands are doing Exodus 90. We don't mean cold like American cold. We mean like you take in a bucket of ice from outside and that's what you're bathing in. Like I just felt like the pipes in Ireland, like that cold is colder than what we get here. Like yeah, it was freezing cold. Cuz I know we had a very small water heater, so you flip the switch, but you really needed the fire going to have a warm shower at our old house. And even just when you felt it running out, like I remember so many times being in the shower, I'm like, oh, I gotta hurry up. Any second the water's gonna turn ice cold. And I'd always tell my American visitors, I'm like, listen, take your shower quick. Like, don't mess around. You get in there, you laugh, because our tank was just so small. And even though we had the fire on, and the coal was keeping it warm, still was a small tank over the fire. But yeah, that's so funny. No, I do. And I even and Matt and I were the opposite because we had done Net Ireland. And so when people are like Irish rural, so I remember meeting with Father Sweeney and he kept saying it was an Irish mass. I was like, oh yeah, I know. I thought he meant it's a mass in Ireland. I had no idea he meant that the mass was actually in Gaelic, that it was an Irish mass. Like we were clueless. So like our first week there, we were like, oh my goodness, like you mean you don't speak a word of English in mass? I'm like, yeah, no, we told you it was an Irish mass. I'm like, yeah, but when you said Irish mass, I thought you meant it was a mass in Ireland.
That is so funny. Had you not come across any Irish your first year? Like your
No.
year in?
No, we did retreats. I don't know if we went to the Gaeltacht once. And we knew that school predominantly spoke Gaelic. But all the kids spoke English to us. And there was confessions being heard, but like we definitely did not go to a Gaelic mass. No. No, I think we had heard the Our Father and the Hail Mary. And but no, I don't think we were aware that there was actual like Irish parishes and it was actually done in Irish.
Yeah, I'd say there's Irish people who weren't aware of that either, in fairness, because it's not that common.
Okay.
Like, it's beautiful. I think there's a few areas now that are trying to really cultivate it again. Like, maybe not necessarily the Irish Mass, but the Irish language,
Mhm.
which is really good. But sure, I did Irish in school for about, like, from I was 4 till I was 18, and I couldn't hold a full conversation in Irish.
Really? Did you do your leaving certs in Irish?
I did it in English.
You did it in English, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't go to a Gaeltacht school, but so Gaeltacht schools are the schools that do it just through Irish.
Yeah.
But
Our guys would always say, so the Pubble school up in Gweedore, where I taught religion, they did their leaving certs all in Gaelic, so they would be less stressed at exam time because they get more points or something. Is that right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's real. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. because there was one boy in our year who had been to a completely Irish like kindergarten, like up until he was like 11 years old, whatever. Not that's not how that's not how long you stay in kindergarten. What age? What do you call that?
Uh
Preschool?
yeah,
Preschool?
yeah. So he went to elementary school. Yeah.
Elementary school,
Yeah.
that's it. So he did that all in Irish, so he was completely fluent. So he got off the bat so many more marks than us before he even started.
Yeah. Yeah. Did he get the highest in your year?
I don't know. I don't know how he did,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah, I found it interesting. I was like, that's good motivation. Like Canada has like French immersion schools too, and because Canada is a bilingual country. But I don't know if they take like so leave inserts for Americans. It's like our SATs. It's like their big exam. So ACT, SAT. I don't know what it is in Canada, but something like that. And if you do it in Irish, you have an upper hand. I know that even in Ballybuffet, I felt like I had more Irish than the Irish there, like just the prayers. Like now I can't do it to save my life. But I actually, my kids are at public school. Liam was at public school when he was in first grade. And I got invited in to speak to the kids about St. Patrick's Day because they heard that I lived there. So I did the Irish accent and all, but guess what I taught them? I taught him how to make the sign of the cross. I taught him about the shamrocks. I taught him all about the Trinity. And I'm like looking at the teacher like, is this okay? And she's like, and the teacher was like, I feel like you're teaching about Irish stuff, so it's totally fine. I'm like, I basically just taught the kids about the Catholic Church and God and his divinity and the Trinity for an hour. It was awesome. And then they asked me to go to the other classes too and do the same thing.
what an opportunity.
Yeah,
That's so good.
yeah, it was great. And they loved my Irish brogue. They're like, oh, you're from Ireland. I'm like, I'm not. No, I'm an imposter. But, I stayed in Ireland long enough. I can sound like I'm Irish, so I can.
So funny. Is that what I sound like?
No, I hear that. Probably, yeah. You do sound a wee bit like this. So how do you think? Do you think I sound Irish enough? Could I pull it off or no, not really?
You definitely have the inflections,
The
or the
singy song?
inflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know you so well. Maybe if I had my ears, if I wasn't used to hearing your voice on podcasts and
That's
on.
true. That's true.
But
I was in Texas and a guy came up to me when we were living in Ireland. I was in Texas at a store and a guy came up to me and said, "Excuse me, are you from Donegal?" Like not just Ireland, like Donegal. And I wasn't doing an Irish accent. I was just talking the way I normally talked. But I feel like I picked up enough of it that I did this silly song bit. Um and like it was interesting and I was like, no, but that's where I live. And he's been in the States for like 30 years and he's like, it sounded like home. It sounds really good. And so I ended up like having to chat with them in the middle of like a CVS, like a chemist drugstore here in the States. It was great. But it was funny. And that's when I was like, because my family had been teasing me that I picked up an Irish brogue, and I was like, I'm not trying to, but I think I just kind of naturally did a little bit, but like enough, like obviously everyone there was like, you sound American. But when I came back, everyone said I sounded like I was from there. So I didn't belong in either place.
but you definitely, because I'm noticing as we're talking, like at times you sound more like you did when you were here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like definitely did have that wee broke. Because I remember listening to you and Sheena on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't mean to do it, but I do. I fall back into it.
Yeah. But when I came back from America, or from Canada, sorry, anytime I talk about God, because I've been spending the year doing that or giving my testimony, I'd automatically sound more American because I associate, like my brain must have associated talking about God with that accent.
Yes, and pronouncing things, and saying it in such a way. Yeah, Matt's the same. Like when he goes into talk mode, like people have said to him before, they're like, "You sound really Australian, like one-on-one, but when you're giving your talk, you're more American." And he's like, "I've learned to pronunciate certain words so the masses can understand it." But when we went back to Australia, he definitely got his accent back a lot stronger.
It's class.
Mm-hmm. No, it's fun. Oh, it makes me miss Ireland. I think it's it's been a long time now. So I think I'm trying to remember. Liam was, I think, well, Avila was definitely born. So it's probably been 9 years since we've been there, which is crazy.
That's mad.
Yeah.
That is mad.
Yeah, 8 or 9 years because she's 10 and Kiara's 7. So Yeah, and we were in Canada for a year in between. So yeah, I think it's been like 8 or 9 years. It's been too long. We miss it.
It's mad. I remember we Liam like at training when Matt would be giving a talk. He just like come flying in like all energy. So cute.
He's still
He
very
was
much like that.
like
Yep.
so lucky.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It was so fun. We have a friend doing that Ireland this year, and then from Georgia. And then we have another friend that's going next year, and he's going to be on that Ireland too. And so it's fun to kind of have some of our people from here going that way. And so it's fun. I think it's the evangelization has come full circle, where like Ireland was so predominantly Catholic, and y'all sent your missionaries out to us and all the ends of the earth, to evangelize the pagans and the heathens and all that. And now it's like Ireland's kind of, I love hearing about the pockets of richness. So like those priests, and that's so good. And I know the Friars of the Renewal are is it Limerick? Is that where they are?
Yeah, Limerick and Derry, and they're unreal as well.
They're in Derry now too.
Yeah, they've been in Derry quite a while now. I think actually it might have been the year after you left because they are there quite a while.
Oh,
And
good.
oh, I meant to say this as well. So the Sisters of the Renewal, like the sister order to them, they are so beautiful, and they've started for St. Patrick's Day going up, I think like up Slane.
They're there. They're living there in Ireland too.
Yeah, they're in Drogheda, so it's not that far from where St. Patrick had went up a mountain and lit a fire at the top of the mountain. And it's
Yes.
like, I don't remember the ins and outs. Do you remember, Cam? Like why exactly he did that? I feel like it was something about him and a chieftain, and God helped him light the fire first, and he was lighting the fire of faith for Ireland or something along those lines.
Yeah,
And
I vaguely remember. But yeah, go ahead. What are the sisters doing now?
so they started doing like on St. Patrick's Day, having mass and adoration like on the top of the hill, which is beautiful. But so I was hoping to go to it this year, but I think they're not expecting the weather to be too good. So they're going to do like walk up the hill and then have mass inside, which is kind to everyone who'd be standing in the rain.
Oh, that's so great. I love that.
But it's so nice to have like options to do something that's actually really celebrating St.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick. And when you're saying about us sending out the missionaries, like I'm like, send St. Patrick back
Yeah.
because all those snakes out again, like we need. It's so, so, so sad to see a country that was so on fire for God
Mm-hmm.
now like be at best just culturally Catholic. And that's the
And
strange
that's
thing.
at best. Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, no, I mean, that's maybe a bit over
No. I
pessimistic.
think as far as the country goes, you're right. Not your pocket, not your friends, and not our friends back in Donegal, and not the people with the Friars of the Renewal and the Sisters of the Renewal, and not that pocket in Knock, and not that pocket in Dublin. But as a country overall, it's true. But there are
Yeah,
pockets that are on fire, and I do think that's what we need to focus on. And,
with the likes of like East 2000,
yes,
that's in America as well, and
it
it
is.
is
Yeah.
it is so solid, and we just need so many more movements like that, like
Hmm.
Net 2000. There's so much hope, absolutely, and I feel like I think I remember you mentioning this in a podcast before, but I feel like God is using this time now to purify and
Hmm.
to solidify the church
Hmm.
so that we can be stronger and start that whole mass evangelization all over again,
Yeah. Yeah, now is a time to cleanse and purify and be purified. I think that in the past, I feel like we've been in abundance where it's like, okay, let's go, let's evangelize, let's do all this. And those things are still important, but not to the detriment of those. It's like, no, we need that Rembrandt. Like somebody was saying, like with all the scandals and all that broke in the States, and like churches are going to close down, it'll be the worst thing ever. And I'm like, no, let them. Let those churches close down. Like, let's forget about the big showy this and that in this mega church or whatever that looks the exact same as the non-denominational down the road. Let those churches close. Like, let us get back to the simple basics. Like, let us get back to Christ and being like him and his followers, and not get caught up in all these other things and the frills, and let's weed all of that out and take part in this time of purification. I was talking to a priest in Australia, where Cardinal Pell is in prison, in, was it Melbourne? Is he in Melbourne? Anyhow, it's a completely innocent man that did nothing wrong, and even people that aren't Catholic are like, this guy's innocent. Like, there's no way that he could have done what he's been accused of, Anyhow, and this other priest that's friends with him was saying how he looks at it as so he's like in prison. He barely gets to see anyone. And he said it's a great time of retreat and penance. And he's happy to pay this penance for the church. And he said that the people that have been visiting him, he's been very joyful and offering it all up. And it's like, that's like, it's Christ, right? Like, he is the man who was accused of things that are not true, but he's willing to pay the cost and he's willing to sacrifice. And I feel like that's what those of us are called to do right now. Like, we're called to pay the price. We're called to take the insults and the beatings and the bruises and whatever it is, and like, turn it over to the Lord and let him use it for his glory and his good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's so good to hear. And this guy that we know here, he's 18 and he's so excited to go to Ireland and evangelize and all of that. But I think it's so good to be reminded, like, it's one soul at a time. Like, that's how the Lord works, right? Like, he loves everyone and he wants to encounter everyone. But like St. Patrick, like, all that he did was, it was the person beside him that felt called to live a radical life the way he did, And it's just one person at a time. That's how evangelization works. And, or 5 people at a time, you and the girls you're living with, and it's just living your faith daily and letting that evangelize. Like, people, that speaks volumes. People are like, I want what you have. What is that?
Yeah. So if everybody listening to this can pray for Ireland and can pray for complete like revival in the church, it would be amazing.
Yes. As
we can, the Irish people who are practicing their faith can be brave witnesses, and like won't hide our faith, hide our light under a bushel, because there's people like, I don't even know where this is from, but it's just come into my head, that like people are like literally dying of despair in Ireland, like especially here in Northern Ireland. There's an extremely high suicide rate. There's no, but when you don't have hope, when you don't have God, like how can you see an end to the struggles that you're in? So easy to see how without God you could fall into that. So please pray so much for us.
Yeah.
And we're praying for America too.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And I think that that's something that I love for St. Patrick's Day. It's not about wearing green. It's not, going to mass is actually great. So actually it is about going to mass, and if you are like me and you would have associated yourself as being Irish descent. So like, we're Irish. I remember going to Ireland and be like, I'm Irish. And people are like, you're not. No, you're American. You should just take pride in that. Like, yeah, maybe your great grandmother came over from Ireland, but you're American, have pride in that. But, like, instead of being like, I'm going to make sure I drink my Guinness today, or I'm going to make sure I wear my green. And it's like, no, pray for Ireland, go to mass if you can, if time allows, but just, pray for Ireland and pray for the people there and for courage. Like, I remember someone saying, like, suffering is really hard, but without suffering, there's no need for virtue. Like, it is through suffering and despair that we need courage and hope and fortitude and perseverance. Like, all the great virtues are awakened in us and are being called out of us. And I feel like that's the whole, I don't know, St. Patrick, evangelizing and giving hope to all of Ireland. Like, It's because of his courage. It's because he wasn't afraid. And I know there was multiple obstacles that he faced that people were like, you're gonna die. Like, you're just gonna die. Like, and it's like, and no, he evangelized and converted. And it's like, they were supposed to eat you alive. What happened? And it's like, by God's grace. Yeah. So no, definitely I will be praying so much for your country. I know I was back when, the abortion thing was being passed and all of that. But I don't know. I think that St. Patrick's Day is a day where it's like all Americans, Irish or not, Catholic or not, like we all think of Ireland. And I think, wouldn't it be so much better to actually pray for Ireland than just think of them and wear our green?
Yeah, amen. Send all the prayers. We'll take
Right? Yeah. And the power of that. And both
them.
from the Irish people that rise up. And I do think that y'all are our leaders in it and we can support you, the foreign missionaries. And I think we knew that even with Net going over there. Like our year, it was all Americans, and then we had our first couple of Irish, and you were in there in the first handful, which is such a gift. And it's like you are fruit of us going and us serving, and now there's so much more, and now the Foy's leading it, and it's just so good to see so many Irish kind of taking it over. And it's like, you need to be the main ones evangelizing your people, and we can help and we can support, but no, it's good. And I remember that first Youth 2000 I went to in Knock, and I was just so blown away. And I think we were still living in Gweedore at the time. And so once we moved to Ballybuffet, I had so much more hope for the church and everything, but where we lived, like, it was Father Michael Sweeney. It was the priests in town that believed what the church taught. And then Nora, God bless Nora Sweeney, Father Michael's sister. And then I think there was like maybe a family or two. It was very few that really embraced the church's teaching. And it was hard to be the only ones. And then we got a lot of opposition from the town because we were young, like we were early 20s, just married. And most of the town had told themselves, oh, these old people believe this, but the church has changed her ways. Like, obviously you can sleep with whoever you want before you can get married. You can use contraception, whatever else. And then you have this young couple that comes in and it's like, actually, all that stuff they were saying, it's true, and we believe it, and we're going to live it out. But giving those people hope is massive. And yeah. No, it's so needed. What are some ways that you see the Rembrandt, or you see like the church alive and well among your friends and among some of these groups in Ireland?
Um, I think there's definitely been a beautiful devotion growing to adoration. I feel like there's two things, right? The most solid people I know in their faith are either very very much in love with Mary and love the rosary, or like are completely mad about adoration. And in fairness, most of them are a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
But so then I notice that any of the movements that have adoration and have the rosary in it are the most, from what I can see, they're the most fruitful. Um Yeah, and I feel like any time where people are being brought to recognize that the true presence is actually Jesus, which is like we all were, as Catholics, you're brought up to know that, and yet to actually believe it is something so different, or even better to experience God like through the sacraments. So I feel like that's really like people engaging in the sacramental life. And even so, it's so easy to fall out of the sacramental life, like, for example, like for the last few years, obviously love God, but going to mass, going to confessions. But I've noticed this year when I've been living with the girls, I've been seeing by their example of like getting to daily mass whenever they can. I'm like, oh, do you know, I'm going to do that too. Like, and just like the more you're going to the sacraments, the more you're opening yourself up to that grace.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I go to confessions, even when I know I don't really need to go just yet, but like, I don't want to miss out on the graces either when
Yeah.
they're there. And I feel like that's the mark of like the openness to the sacraments and to receive. And also, like, the like faithfulness to wanting to know what God's real teaching is on something, like
Hmm.
the search for truth, as opposed to just being like, I heard a priest say this once and it's convenient, so I'm going to go with that. Um, yeah, I feel like that's been the mark for me of the people around me who are really following Christ and where I see the most fruit.
Yeah, and it's the positive peer pressure too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like if
And
all
because
your friends were like, "Hey, you got to make sure you go drink a Guinness today," like, and that's what your focus is. It's like, okay, you're gonna make sure you drink a Guinness. But if they're like, get to mass or, yeah, pray, encounter the Lord, sit, open your Bible, pray, and just, yeah, what's the Lord saying? And I feel like I missed that. Like when I was on net, I always had someone asking me like, "What's the Lord doing in your heart? Like, how is He speaking to you?" And yeah, I'm trying to meet with Patty once a week. And I love it. And even knowing that I'm gonna talk to her today, like I got my Bible out this morning and I made sure I had a better prayer time than I normally do. Because it's like she's gonna ask what the Lord's doing, and I need to be aware of what God's doing in my heart right now.
it's so true. It's so true. And it's that like when you're submersed in the culture, you're totally called on. When you put yourself in a bubble of people who are holier than you and are
Hmm.
seeking God better than you are, you can't help but want that, you know. And it's so easy to become complacent. Because I like someone was saying this recently, because I lived with a group of girls and none of them were really practicing their faith except me. So in comparison to them, I was doing great.
Right?
Because
You're
I'm
like, I'm so holy, actually.
yeah, and I'm like praying, I'm doing the things you're meant to be doing. But I wasn't striving to be the best that I
Mhm.
could be for Christ. I wasn't striving to love him the very best. It's it's different when you're challenged.
Yeah. No, that's really good. You're right, it is. And then my other question to you with Ireland, I feel like the whole when ho- because you're a nurse, right? What area of nursing are you in?
I'm in cardiac intensive care,
Okay.
so people after open heart surgery.
Oh wow. Yeah. Um that's really cool. Have you seen a big change in the hospital there or like since abortion's been made legal? Like did you see things change a lot dramatically? Like are you going to be like Canada and have them in the abortions actually done in the hospitals or are there clinics opening up? How is that affecting y'all?
So at the minute, so the north and south is governed differently.
Oh,
So
right. So it's been legal in Northern Ireland the whole time.
no, it hasn't been.
Oh, wait, it's still illegal in Northern Ireland.
Well, so they recently, so Northern Ireland is a bit ridiculous. Like for quite a while, we didn't have a government because two of the parties couldn't agree with each other to go into government.
Okay.
So there was nobody to implement these rules or to implement like changes to the policies on abortion or whatever. So in the last few months, in the last few months, they decriminalized abortion in
Okay.
Northern Ireland, but there's no protocols for abortion, there's no guidelines as such. It just is no longer a criminal offence
Okay.
too. So there hasn't been any changes at the minute in healthcare, especially like I'm not working in an area that has exposure to pregnant women.
Right.
So, um, I don't know if maybe on the counselling end of things, if things have changed, because I
Hmm.
suppose now that it's not illegal, people might feel freer to recommend people to go to England or to go to the south for it. But
Right.
then in the south of Ireland, it's mainly GP led, so it'd be like the tablet forms of abortion as opposed to surgical.
Okay.
And then like there's like the hospital in Letterkenny apparently isn't doing any abortions because the nurses and the doctors won't go for it.
Oh, well, that's
So we have
good.
yeah, it's amazing. So we have quite a lot of um people who are living here from abroad, um and some of the Muslim and other Christian faiths are so against abortion that they're standing up against it better than the Catholics, the Irish Catholics, which is
Oh.
amazing. Like, long may it last that there's people.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I just think about the care that I got when I was pregnant there, and the doctor was so great and so good. I couldn't even imagine him recommending, like, he wouldn't, but I remember not there wasn't that many tests that were done versus pregnancies in the States. We go through so many more tests. And I remember asking him, I'm like, aren't you supposed to test more? And he's like, well, what do you want to know? Like, we made sure your baby has 4 chambers in the heart and it has 4 limbs. Like, what else do you need? I was like, I don't know. I thought I was like supposed to go to you and have more tests. No, no, no. You only do that in America because you want to maybe get rid of it. No, we're keeping them all here. And I just remember being shocked by it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And then I also asked him, and I felt horrible, but I'm like, are there more Down syndrome people in Ireland because it's like a smaller gene pool? Like, what is that? And he's like, no, we just don't kill him. No, you've been killing them for years in America. That's why you don't have them.
That is so sad.
Yeah, yeah. And then the tests for Down syndrome that they do when women here are pregnant, I I personally know multiple people that have been told their baby's gonna have some. I was told with Kiara she'd have some deformity. She's fine, but people that were told their baby's gonna have some deformity or have Down syndrome or something, and their kids turn out fine. It's just like early on testing, and you just don't know. Yeah, it's really sad, and the fact that a healthcare provider who's supposed to help protect you and your baby, they're your advocate and your baby's advocate. Yeah, it just blows my mind. But good, I'm glad that that Letterkenny is standing up for that. I felt like I lived in that hospital for a while. I was in it for I think 5 months, just in my pregnancy with Liam. So yeah. Oh, good for them. Well, I will keep praying
Absolutely.
for them.
I think there's only one GP in Ireland who's given the pill out. Not the contraceptive pill, but the two abortion
Yeah.
pills. That's although it's obviously awful, but we have like Donegal would have well over 100 GPs, and if only one
Yeah.
of them is doing it. Now that may have changed,
Yeah.
but it's
And
the last I heard.
And you were the only county that voted no, too, right? Donegal voted no when everyone else voted yes. But I guess you're right. I was just assuming Northern Ireland was a part of that, but you weren't. It was just Ireland. Yeah, the Republic. Interesting.
It is. I love though that the Irish culture does very much like I feel like we do a good job with people with learning disabilities
Oh,
and
yeah.
them so part of the culture, and long may that last. But it's terrifying to think that that might change
Yeah.
because when abortion is normalized, especially, I heard someone saying that when they were told that their baby had Down syndrome, they were told it like it was the worst news in the world. And that, like, being told in that way is going to so shape how you view this moment. Like, if someone
Yeah.
said, you've got a beautiful baby, like, there's also something we need to tell you, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
It's so different being like, I'm breaking the worst news in the whole world to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so different. And after the baby's born and then finding the blessing in it as well. And yeah, you're right. And the stress, like, it's just not good for the pregnant mom either. Like, to put her in that state of stress in her pregnancy, why? Why do it? But I love the families that I met who were caring for someone that wasn't able to care for themselves. Um, they were just more amazing families. Like, they just were beautiful and so patient and so kind and so loving. And then when you find out, like, oh yeah, their aunt lives with them who has Down syndromes, or oh yeah, they care for their brother who has this for, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's why you're such a good, beautiful, virtuous person, because you live with this, right? And yeah.
Yeah. I've heard as well that siblings are more likely to go into a caring profession if they have like a sibling with Down syndrome or a learning
I
disability,
believe
which
it.
is because I've heard the argument of, if you continue your pregnancy, keep this baby, like they're going to take all of your attention and you're not going to have time for your other children that they need. But of course, God would never let that be the way.
No, no. And then also the gift of knowing that, like, your child's not capable of sinning. Like, you're raising a saint, and, like, yeah, it requires more of you sometimes, but the innocence that they have and the closeness to the Lord, like, I don't think that you could have um a Down syndrome person who's an atheist. Like, I don't think that would exist. Like, I feel like they just know God so well, you know, and just are madly in love with him and just have this joy and this peace. And, yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. All right, what else? What else about Irish? I feel like I've taken us on these tangents now, but I don't know. I just think it's so good for I don't know. St. Patrick's Day always makes me miss Shaw, but I'm gonna be more um diligent in praying for Ireland as a nation. This St. Patrick's Day. But what else for people listening from overseas or abroad? We actually, oh my goodness, did you know that my podcast is like voted number 50 or something in Ireland for like spiritual podcasts or something?
Wow, that's amazing.
I got an email. And I was like, hey, that's cool. Christine Malone actually told me about it. She's like, hey, you got an email. You're voted like number, I don't know if it was number 50 or in the top 50, but something like that for young people in Ireland. I was like, yes, woohoo, represent Irish people.
Hopefully none of them are listening to this being like, that's not even true about St. Patrick, what I've been saying. You can come up to Youth 2000 folks and tell me what I've got wrong.
Or email me and I'll have you on the show and we can correct things. I feel like it's really hard because the Irish culture is so linked to folklore and it's so much a part. And it's like, okay, what's really true? What's really not? But it's like, I think that there's a message in it regardless, whether that specific detail was factual or not. Actually, Formed, we have an app called Formed. And I think you can go to formed.org or formed.com and they have audiobooks and they have one of St. Patrick that's really, really, really good. I highly recommend. The kids and I listened to it. And I think they did a really good job of telling his story and it being a lot more factual. Yeah, because his plan was never to be a priest and it was never to be a bishop, but it just kind of like all happened, right? And it was just God's hand.
So cool, because I feel like St. Patrick's the saint that everyone hears about, but then you just take him for granted and you want to look into like the other saints, the more exciting ones you've never heard of before. And then in coming up to this podcast, I was like, Jeekers, I better look something up to make sure I'm not making stuff up on the podcast. Like, so I was looking up about him and I was like, he's actually unreal. Like,
he's amazing. Right.
So I would pray for us because imagine being able to change a whole country. Obviously, grace of God alone, but that's unbelievable. There's one thing now that I do have to say, and when I was talking to my friends about this podcast, one of them said you need to clear something up with the American people. Okay. So I hope that you do this in great love. But often I hear people say St. Patty's Day.
Don't say it.
It's not a thing. It's Paddy's Day.
Okay, wait, Claire, say it again.
So people say patties, like Patty.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Not a thing. But I often see it on Facebook, like, and people have been like, Happy St. Paddy's Day. But with the T, it's just not Irish.
So should they just say St. Patrick's or can they say it with the D?
Oh, they can say it with the D, yeah. Like Paddy's.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not, so for those to clarify, it's not St. Patty's Day, it's St. Paddy's with a D. Paddy's Day. But just say St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. Or what is it? Padraig? What is it in Irish?
Yeah, Padraig.
Yeah, Padraig's Day. So you could say Padraig's Day, but Patrick's. Yeah. Patty with Patty is not a thing. You're right. Yeah. No, that's good. That is a good thing to clarify. You're right. Or people just say
important. St. Patrick won't care what you call him, I'm sure.
No, I think he may. I think he'd rather be. Well, not. Yeah, no, I think. Yeah, well, even in where we live, like if you would call Patrick, he'd be offended. You know? Like if you change like if someone says their name. My favorite is it Cahill? No, there's one. Dermot. It's Irish for Germit. Is that it? Is it Germit and Dermot?
Uh-huh.
So someone told me they're like, Dermot, it's Irish for Germit. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. Dermot doesn't exist anywhere else in the world either. It's only Ireland. But they're
that.
Yes. No, did you not know that? Well, just so you know. So you're clarifying stuff for Americans. Let me clarify something for you Irish.
That's
Dermot is Irish for Dermot, but nowhere else in the world do they say Dermot as a name.
yeah, that is so funny.
And there's another one. I can't remember what it is. Is it Cahill or Maeve? There's another one that people are like, oh, it's the Irish for this. And I'm like, both of those are Irish. Neither one is English. But I guess it's the English version, but nowhere else in the world do you find that name.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah. Or people here that'll tell me their name's Irish and it'll be like Maeve, but it's like spelt with a V and not a, is it supposed to be a BH or an MH? What is it?
Yeah, so that's the thing. There's so many for the same pronunciation. Like I've seen so many different spellings, like people just having their name spelled different. But so I have a friend who spells it Meabh, but I also do have a friend who spells it with the V because in the Irish the BH and the V is the same sound, like
Yeah.
in Gaelic.
Mm-hmm. My sister grew up her whole life telling everyone, my little sister, shout out Keon, I love you. She told everyone her whole life her name is Keon, Keon. And my mom said someone told her that name. It was a nurse who was from Ireland and said it was an Irish name. And so I asked everyone in Ireland, have you ever heard of the name Keon? They're like, no, no, haven't. There's Mick Keon, but it's MC, big M, little C, big Keown. So it's like, really,
Yeah.
Keon? Like, someone took a surname and just cut off the beginning of it, and then that's your name? But she told everyone it meant Irish princess. And I'm like, I don't think that's a thing.
Well, if it works for her, I'll pretend it is.
Right? There you go. So, anyone, if you know of a real Keown other than my sister, let me know. But I'm like, no, I think we just. Americans love taking something and be like, oh, it's very Irish. Everyone does it. Or my mom kept saying when we were there, she's like, I'm sorry, I don't speak Irish. I'm like, Mom, stop saying that. These people are speaking English.
That is so fun.
But like, she couldn't understand the waitress. She's like, I don't speak Irish. I'm like, Mom, this woman's speaking English. Don't let me speak for you, Mom. Just shh.
So sweet. That's like my dad like just talks louder to people like not from Ireland. He just talks louder as if that helps him understand a foreign language. Like I'll just shout at you slowly. Not good.
Oh, it's so funny. I think it's their generation. My mom does the same thing. And I'm like, Mom, they're not deaf. They just speak another language. Well, Cameron, if you speak clearly and yell and nod your head, it helps. I'm like, no, I don't think that does. No, I think you think it helps, but it doesn't really.
So funny. So funny. It is so beautiful though, like the affection the American people have for Ireland.
Yeah.
Like nice. I don't think there's that many other places in the world that have the same that you get the same reception just for being Irish.
Yeah.
Like I met a woman in Canada and she hugged me and cried because she was
Oh,
so happy to have met a real Irish person. It's like this is a bit overwhelming.
that's beautiful. That's so nice.
But she somehow had got this love for Irish people
Yeah.
without having ever met
Wow. I think especially like in the north, my favorite is I was talking to an old man in Ireland and I was telling him I was from Texas and he's like, "Right, no, Texas. Where's that? Is that near Boston or Chicago?" I'm like, "Nope, neither." Like but in his all he knew was New York, Boston, and Chicago. That was it. And I was like, "Texas." Like, "No, I haven't heard of it." I'm like, "It's near Mexico." "No, I haven't heard of Mexico." I'm like, "Okay." It's in the middle of the United States. No, is it near Boston or Chicago by chance? Oh, I've heard of New York too. Is it New York City? I'm like, no, no.
That's so funny. Well, in fairness, when I heard about Canada first, when I met the first net team, I don't know, like, I don't want to say this is all Irish people, probs just me, but I was like, right, and where is that in America? Like, which city is that?
I think that's fair. I think even there's some Americans that are like that, but in Ireland we got that for sure. Like our Canadians are like, wait, where is that? Um, but funny enough, I think it's just like wherever you so like I'm originally from Boston, and so my family has great pride in being Irish Catholic. So I remember growing up, we were told we weren't just Catholic, we were Irish Catholic, and it meant more than like regular Catholics, like those other Catholics from Poland, psh, whatever, they don't know it, but Irish Catholic, we know what it means, and I think I don't know. I think that's pride that's like just passed down through the generations, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's the fighting Irish. Like there's pride in that, and even if it's only like a small percentage of what you are, like, I don't know, there's something in it, and it is beautiful, and I do like it, and I don't know. I think, yeah, but I also see from being there when people are like, just be happy you're American. I'm like, I am happy. Like, I realize I am mainly American, but that little bit of Irish, like, there's some pride that's like, yes, the Irish. I don't know. We like you people a lot.
Well, what's not to like?
Oh, we
What?
like yous. That's what I should be saying. We like yous a lot. And your man. I remember the first time I heard that, I was, someone's like, oh, your man will be by the house later. And I'm like, Matt, no, your other man. I'm like, I don't have another man. But they just meant like your man, and like, no, your man to fix the toilet will be by. I'm like, I don't have a man who's a plumber. And
So funny. Gosh, those wee phrases can get you in some trouble, can't they?
right, they sure can.
Because when I was in Canada, I was chatting to this. I was staying in this host home. They were lovely, and they're like, "Did you have a good day?" I was like, "Yeah, like we just had some really good crack. It was great." And they looked so shocked, and I was like, "Do you not like fun or?"
Yeah, yeah. And they're like, this little druggie. We let her in our house thinking she loved Jesus, and she's just out doing crack. You know my story about crack, right? Do you know mine?
I'm not sure. What was it?
Oh my goodness. Matt uses this in some of his talks. So we were hanging out, we're like mingling with the teens before retreat, trying to get to know them and try to just establish we're normal people or whatever. And they're like, oh, are we gonna have some good crack on the retreat today? And we're like, oh no, we're not gonna do any crack. And like, oh, but and then they're like, oh, but you seem like you're full of crack. And I'm like, no, this is high on the Holy Spirit. It's just all God. And they're like, no, crack's fun. And I was like, no, crack's not fun. It may seem like fun here and now, but it's not. In the long run, drugs will get you. And they're like, no, like in Ireland, crack means fun. And I'm like, no, crack's not fun no matter where you live. And I didn't catch on at all.
Funny.
Yeah, eventually the girl beside me caught on. It's like, no, Cameron, I think what they're saying is like, are we going to have fun on retreat? And I'm like, we'll have fun, but not by doing drugs. And then Matt walked up to a group of teens trying to be all cool because y'all say, what's the crack, right? What's the crack?
Yeah.
He walked up and he pointed to some guys and like, hey, how's your crack? So you can say, what's the crack, but not how's your crack. It's very different.
And you can say how's the crack.
Yeah.
There's so many variations, but your crack's a bit personal.
oh yeah, such crack. And then I remember the first talk I gave there, and people were like, that was brilliant. I was like, wow, my talk was brilliant. And I felt so good about myself and being like, I'm so smart and it was brilliant. And then later they're eating food. Oh, this is just brilliant. And I'm like, oh, they just say brilliant for everything.
The word awesome.
Oh, I know. It's horrible. I'm so sorry.
No, but to us, like, I feel like we've a lot more American TV now, so it's become much more common to use the word awesome. But like 10 years ago, it wasn't common at all. So if I heard awesome, I thought it was like the biggest compliment in the world, that was so full of awe. It must
Oh,
be
there you go. Awesome. There you go. I learned to cut that word out of my vocab, or at least cut it back a bunch when we were in Ireland and use other words besides. What's that?
Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, yeah, because everyone commented on how often I said awesome. And then
Oh,
if I got $1 every time someone asked if I was a cheerleader, I'd be rich. Because everyone wanted to know. They're like, oh, you're from America. Are you a cheerleader? I'm like, no, why would I be a cheerleader? But I think they just thought all Americans were cheerleaders.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Well, like I remember thinking it'd be class to be a cheerleader, but we used to pretend to be cheerleaders.
There you go.
But
There you go. No, it's great. I love it. Oh, it's so fun. I love reminiscing. You had me
what
almost in tears laughing so hard. Go ahead. Sorry.
what do you miss most from Ireland?
Oh. I miss, like, as soon as someone walks in my house or as soon as I go over their house, I honestly miss sitting down and having tea with people. And it
Mm,
just being like a normal, like stopping what you're doing, like showing up at someone's house and they stop what they're doing, sit down, have a cup of tea. And like it's expected that we're just going to sit and have a heart to heart. And I miss that. Like, I love that, the tea and biscuits. And yeah, and the slower pace of life. Like I'm sure Belfast is not this at all, but in Donegal, I went from a very hectic go 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 living in Houston to rural Donegal, you know? And I like the slow pace of life. And I miss walking to mass and I miss hearing the bells and praying the Angelus every time I hear the bells.
yeah.
Can you hear bells there? Do they still do the bells in cities?
Some of them do, yeah. Yeah, I suppose every chapel's different. But I was walking through town and heard the bells today.
Mm.
Yeah, it is beautiful. But our hometown doesn't, you don't hear the bells at home.
Oh, do you not?
No, maybe we're actually just too far from the chapel to hear them though, now that I think about
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah, I miss it. And then just the beauty of outside, just walking around and seeing the green and the sheep and just I don't know, I think it makes contemplative life easier in so many ways, which is it makes me want to apologize to Ireland for our busyness because I think that you guys have gotten that. I don't know if you got it from us or the British, but like just the go 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 and get a million things done. And Ireland didn't used to be like that, and I'm sorry that we've kind of those of us that come from countries that are more go go go, like I wish that we could just sit and be more. And I think older Irish get it. And I don't know if the younger ones get it as much, but maybe the ones that are coming back to the faith more, like maybe you and your friends, like just I don't know, do you do that more? Just sit and have a cup of tea and chat with someone and just share your heart? Like is that or is it harder
Um,
cuz you're in the city?
no, I think we definitely do. Like even last night, a friend called over at like 10 o'clock and we started chatting. There was a group of four of us, and we had the tea on, and then
Yeah.
the one tea leads to another cup of tea, and then the next thing, like honestly, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. We had spent the whole night chatting about God and faith and just great chats,
I
and the
love that.
time flew. But it's such a gift when you have the time to do that. Like that's my life isn't always staying up to 6 o'clock in the morning talking about God. Like that was a beautiful once off. But then when you go on a night out and stay out till 4 in the morning, then why not stay up chatting to God that late or
Yeah.
chatting about God that late?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the beauty as well of your time when you're single and you're working and your main responsibility is, living out your vocation at work. And then for me, like trying to develop my prayer life and like prepare for marriage, but I don't
Mhm.
have kids that I have to like have a routine for,
Yes.
or,
Yeah.
there's a beautiful freedom in that.
Yeah, yeah, and having that. And I do like I miss being at mass and just seeing Kathy O'Hare was always really good about like inviting us over for a cup of tea. And I love that. Like I love going to mass and then randomly getting invited over for a cup of tea and just sitting. And then other people that were at mass and like just chatting with them and like she always had something. Like I felt like it wasn't just tea and biscuits. She always had something else she was pulling out. Or Sheena was so great about that. And I miss sitting around the table and like I don't know, like I want to do that more and but I like offer someone a cup of tea and if they say yes, then I'm more likely to sit and be with them, but if they say no, then I keep doing whatever I'm doing. And I like to be a hospitable house. So I feel like I am hospitable, but I'm missing the element of just sitting and being with them even if the
Mhm.
house needs to be vacuumed or you know what I mean? And I think that yeah, even like going for a walk down the street like in our neighborhood, I feel like we got that and I miss that, you know. There was like an older couple in our little neighborhood in Valley Buffet and they invited me in for a cup of tea and I wasn't like afraid I wasn't thinking they were gonna murder me. We're like, here, if someone invites me in for a cup of tea, I'm like, oh gosh, they're a psychopath and they're going to kill me. Like, it's just so not American, you know? But there it's like, oh yeah, it's a sweet little old lady. She wants to sit and chat. And like, anytime you come by, just, you know, give a wee little knock on the door and you can come in and have tea and biscuits. And I love that.
That is so lovely. I think in general, in like Donegal, there'd be much more of that with people you don't know, like a more openness to that. But it is, the tide is definitely changing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as life is getting busier and
Yes.
as there are, unfortunately, like things happening in the world that do make you a bit more careful.
Yes.
It is sad to see that change, like that presumption that everyone is good. You know, of course, everyone can come into our house for a cup of tea. You know, that's slowly changing, but definitely it's more there in the rural areas than it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I think so. It's definitely more rural, but
And
yeah.
even in Catholic like faith circles, it's so common. Like it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. I have a friend that's in England right now and she went over and they're starting a homeschool hybrid and she told the people that they were doing a working lunch and they all laughed at her. And she's like, "No, seriously, like we're going to just work through lunch." I'm like, "Oh, you Yanks, you're hilarious. No, we're not working through lunch. No, we already had the table set." And she's like, they pull out a tablecloth and they put like nice china down and silverware. Where like in the States, like it's like to go plates that you throw away and you just like eat off your lap as you're hearing a talk or whatever. And I love that. It's like, no, no, no. We're going to sit and be with one another and drink tea and eat our meal and like eat on real things like dignified people. And we're going to take an hour and a half break because that's what we should do. And she was saying, she's like, it's good. Like, it's good for me to do that. But it's so not normal, you know? So I think even the British influence there. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Even girls that I work with who've been there much longer than me say that they notice a difference because of mobile phones. Whereas at
Yes.
the time you'd have this time where you could talk about the good things in the day, the bad things of the day if you were finding something difficult.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you're having a bad day, you're more likely to just hide in your phone for your half-hour break than like
Mm-hmm.
turn and invest in the people around you. And I know the girls who we have some nurses who will come in who are retired and they notice a massive difference in the atmosphere. Like, and then once someone gets the chat going, people put their phones down and get chatting. But it's just not as instinctive, not as natural.
Yeah, I try to do that. Like that's what I'm doing during Lent is I'm trying to not be on my phone and I'm trying to look at people around me and talk and interact with people and not be on social media as much and like let's just keep real life present, you know, with each other. Yeah, and not just talking to my phone because I fall into that too and it's good to be aware and to fight against it because I don't and I see kids. We're very blessed that we have a lot of friends that raise their kids like so our kids are like wild kids, right? And I'll tell you a funny story about my son from yesterday. You'll get a kick out of it. It was Liam. They're out playing in the woods and playing whatever, and we have an outdoor cat, and he caught a chipmunk. You know what chipmunks are?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the cat caught a chipmunk, and then Liam got the chipmunk from the cat and's holding it. And it's a wild animal. I don't know why he's just holding it, but he's just holding it. And then he was trying to do something, and it bit him. So I hear screaming from outside, a chipmunk bit me. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know, but I was like, if someone had a phone, it would have been a really funny video. But our kids like have real life injuries, like they fall off trees or get bit by chipmunks and not like the brain injuries or whatever with being addicted because you're always like this on your device.
But that's it. You want kids to be out like exploring,
Yes.
like encountering the world, encountering nature, not on the phone all the time.
Yeah, yeah, no. And I feel like I saw the difference back then I feel like phones were more expensive in Ireland because I feel like we were still paying for the minute when I lived there, right? Have you guys switched to unlimited plans or do you still pay for minute and per gig?
Yeah, I'd say bill pay is much more common now. You know
Okay.
that because we had it, yeah, top up where you'd
Right,
have
the
like
top up. Yeah.
10, yeah, and then but now, yeah, it's much more common bill pay.
Okay. Yeah. But I kind of liked it when it was top up because it's like, well, if you're out of credit, it's like you've got it. Look at the other person and talk to them. Or you're like, is this really worth this much money to be on my phone? It's like, no, I'm just going to have real life conversations, which is just so good.
So much better. So much better. But then we'd never be able to do this if we didn't have.
I know. So I am thankful for technology just so we can have this chat now. Be having this chat full of crack, which has just been grand. Okay, so we're praying for Ireland. We're gonna say Happy Patrick's Day, not patties. That's not a thing. What else? What's your other challenge to our listeners for celebrating St. Patrick's Day this year?
Hmm. I think a good challenge would be if everybody listening can ask God to give them somebody that they can share a little bit of their faith with. Because
Mm,
that's really what St. Patrick would be doing.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with like St. Valentine's Day. It's like St. Valentine was a martyr. Like he was killed. Why are we celebrating him by giving people candy? It's like we should really be thinking about how we can die to ourselves, really. And not you're going to get in trouble unless you buy your sweetheart a Valentine or flowers. But yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
very good. Think about one person that you could just share a bit of your faith with. I love that. That's a great St. Patrick's Day challenge.
If you give God the chance, like he'll make the person obvious. Like
Yeah.
you'll know who to tell and what to tell them.
Yes. Amen. Amen. That's a great challenge. Thank you very much. Any other common misconceptions you need to clarify, especially with our North American listeners?
Gosh, I can't think of anything at the minute. Do you remember any, Cam? Let me think.
Uh, I think I think people telling me like you're American, not Irish. Like you could be, have identity as being Irish ancestry, but don't actually say you're Irish yourself. Because people are like, you're not Irish, and I'm like, oh, okay, but like my ancestry is. So like, yeah, that's different. Like your people come from Ireland is different than you being Irish.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say that, but I feel like because I know so many people who are so happy to call themselves
I
Irish, I'm
know you don't want to take it away from them.
like, okay, that's fine,
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair.
you know?
Just don't go to Ireland telling them you're Irish. Just keep it to yourself.
I know there's people who be like, my great great grandmother's granny's dog's sister was from Ireland,
You're
right?
like, right? Okay, that dog's not related to you, so.
Yeah.
I also miss the community aspect. Like I remember we had someone in our town that died and there was a funeral and the whole town shut down. Like the grocery store, the gas pump, like everything shut down because everyone went to the funeral. And then that person like had sandwiches coming out their eyeballs. Like they had so many sandwiches made for them and like the wake in the morning, like they were at their house for I think a couple of days, like mourning the loss of this loved one, and people just kept coming and sitting and being with them. Um and I think that's something that we can learn more. Like I think that's something that the Irish did very well that I loved, like grieving the loss of a loved one. It was the whole town doing it, not just that individual person.
Yeah, it is so beautiful, especially in the smaller communities where everyone just jumps on board to support the family. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't actually realize that that wasn't common
No.
outside Ireland.
No, it's not. I remember there was a woman who had a baby and I made her a meal. Like I made her like a pot of stew or something and a loaf of bread and I brought it over to her and she's like, "Why'd you do this? Nobody's died." I'm like, and she's like, "And it's not sandwiches." I'm like, "No, do you want sandwiches? I can make you sandwiches. I just thought like this could be dinner for your family." And she's like, "No, I just don't understand. Nobody's dead." And I was like, "No, but you had a baby. Congratulations." And she's like, "You made me food." And she just thought it was the funniest, like she had never heard of that before. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's something we do in the States." Like I feel like that's our version. Like when someone has a baby, we do like a food train and we make food for people.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel like we spent this podcast talking about Ireland, but I wouldn't want it to end without saying like how beautiful the American culture is and how like I've learned so much about my faith and about my relationship with God through amazing people I've met from America and through these amazing movements that have been started and like focus and the whole homeschool movement.
Yeah.
Like there's so much that you are doing that's already helping Ireland just by the example. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's
It's funny.
so
I realized when I was in Ireland, the gift that the Protestant Revolution was in the US to our faith life. Like the whole like personal relationship with Jesus. I very much associate that with being Catholic as well, just because I was raised with it, right? And yeah, and it's good. But yeah, I don't even think I'm in the top 100 in the States, so forget the American listeners. We're all about affirming the Irish, top 50. Woohoo, go Ireland. I really love my Irish. The Yanks aren't bad either. No, they're not. But
So bad.
oh, well, thank you so much. It's been lovely chatting with you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I think it's good to have Patrick's Day just to remember our time in Ireland and all that we learned. And I love yeah, it's so funny because it was a pagan land for so long before St. Patrick, but I think the whole world considers you just like so Catholic, because of St. Patrick. And then just the Irish language is so Catholic, and even like for the rest of our listeners, like just a common, like to say hi to someone, you say, Dia Smith, Dear Smith, how would you pronounce it?
Dia ditch.
Dia ditch. There you go. Which is, do you know what it means in English? The translation?
Like God be with you.
Yeah, God be with you. And then you would respond, Dia Smerit. Yeah. How
it's ditch.
Yeah, so it's God and Mary be at you. So like the response is just so Catholic, like in nature, and I just love it. And then it's after that, what's the next one? Do you remember?
No, is there another?
Yeah, Dia Smera. It's basically God, Mary, and St. Patrick be at you.
Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that St. Patrick part to it.
Yeah. Padre gets added to it, which is fun. But the mass when the mass was in Irish, it was so short, and I remember being like, why is it so fast? Like it'd be like 15 minutes, on a weekday mass, and they said it's because in the Irish language they talk faster anyhow, but then there's a lot of words that are like one thing means like a big thing, so like Buíochas Legia is like thanks be to God, but it's like it's shorter to say it, and they're like, I don't know, I remember when we do the rosary, I'd be like halfway through and they'd already be done with the rosary. And they said it's because so much of the language is Catholic and like the words are pulled together. I don't even know if that makes sense, but yeah.
That's really cool. I haven't heard that before either. I feel like I'm learning loads here about Ireland.
There you go. Little payoff from living in the Gaeltacht.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's a dream of mine to someday go and actually learn Irish properly. Because when you're submersed in it, you have such a good chance.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
You need to be like,
yeah, no, and you need to hear it all the time. And I feel like when I was living there, I know mass parts. Like I got to the point where I could get through the mass and know most of the responses and be able to follow along. And I stopped chuckling when I hear things like Seamus going up I'm like, Seamus wasn't a disciple. Seamus and Sean,
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, a reading from the book of Seamus. I'm like, no, that's not a thing. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Like, I would definitely laugh too. I think I've only been to maybe 3 Irish masses, in the whole time.
Wow,
So I'd definitely be laughing.
I've been to more Irish masses than you. So yeah, we go to daily mass and then every Sunday. But it was. I always found it interesting to try to figure out the things, but and then Matt there was a lady in the town that was lovely and helped Matt transpose Matt Mars music into Gaelic. So Matt actually sang in Gaelic.
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and then he had a couple people, someone did a tin whistle and someone did something else. Oh, it was lovely, lovely music. But I miss. It's so funny. When I was there, it was really hard and brutal, but now that I'm gone, I'm like, oh, I miss it. It was grand.
I know. It's so easy to just remember the beautiful, nice, easy bits, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to come back. Keep remembering the good bits and come back.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's what'll be happening. So we will all be praying for Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. And thank you so much for taking this time to chat with us.
Thank you. It's been great.
Great crack. Great
Slam
crack
that.
sodas. What?
Slan lat. That's
Slangafoil.